Thank you, Kate. I'm Siobhan Braden, Director of Training and Technical Assistance for NCASE, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this informative and interactive session on creating a successful formula to engage school-age programs in quality improvement. As Kate mentioned, it's great to see the mix of different roles that we have participating in today's webinar. I see we have state, territory, or tribal agency staff. We have some school-age network folks. We have child care providers, both family child care and center-based. We also have Office of Child Care and Office of Head Start staff, state, regional, or national technical assistance providers, and national child care provider organizations, and some other folks. So thank you, everybody, for joining what's going to be a great session. I'm joined today by Jan Sapochny from Pennsylvania and Sharon Vance from Maryland, who will share some of the great work that they've been doing in their states a bit later. I'm also joined by my NCASE colleagues, Susan O'Connor and Kathy Schleier. So Kate, if we could close the poll now, that would be great. Thank you. So the goal of NCASE is to ensure that school-age children in families of low income have increased access to after-school and summer learning experiences that contribute to children's overall development and academic achievement. NCASE is part of a national training and technical assistance system funded by the Administration for Children and Families. And together, we work with regional offices to support states, territories, and tribes in implementing the Child Care and Development Fund, or CCDF. The goals for our session today are to explore together strategies for creating successful plans to incorporate school-age programs in quality improvement and quality rating improvement systems. And you'll hear some excellent examples from our state presenters today. So our agenda, the welcome and overview. Then we'll have a discussion of successes and challenges, some history and trends in quality improvement in QRIS as it relates to school age. We'll hear from our states of Pennsylvania and Maryland, and there will be opportunities, multiple opportunities for you to contribute to the conversation. And then we'll have a summary and close. Before we get started, I'd like to share some working definitions that we've been using here at the National Center on After-School and Summer Enrichment. Our field has a variety of different terminology, and it can sometimes be confusing to try to understand what we're talking about, all of us together. So these are the working definitions that we've been using in all of our work. So we use school age to refer to the age of children served, differentiated from infant, toddler, and preschool care. We use out-of-school time to refer to programming that occurs outside the school day, and that could be before or after school, summer, weekend, and also it can take place in family child care or center settings. And finally, our national center is named After School and Summer Enrichment, and we use that interchangeably with out-of-school time. And now I'm going to pass this over to my colleague, Susan O'Connor, who's going to get us started with what is school-age quality. Susan?
Thanks, Siobhan, and welcome to everybody to the webinar. We're very excited to kick off our work on quality and to have such a great turnout today. As we begin to think about creating a successful formula for quality improvement, let's just take a moment and clarify what we know to be the key components of quality. And we have taken this list from the research done over a number of years by Deborah Lowe-Vandell. So top of the list, low child-to-staff ratios. The field's primary resource for creating licensing standards is called Caring for Our Children, and they provide these guidelines on ratios. And I want you to just listen to these ratios and see where your state fits with this. 1 staff to 8 children for 5-year-olds 1 to 10 children for 1 staff to 10 children for ages 6 to 8, and 1 staff to 12 children for ages 9 to 12. But we do know only a few states meet or exceed these recommendations, but that is considered best practice according to Caring for Our Children. Second quality element, positive social emotional climate, and for us as staff that means a priority focus on staff-child interactions. A clear program structure with rules, routines, and limits to ensure careful supervision and a safe and predictable environment for children. An engaging curriculum which provides children with autonomy and choice in their activities. Continuity and coordination with the regular school day and with families. We can really be, in the out-of-school time world, a very important bridge, just connecting those multiple worlds that children live in. And finally, strong staff management and business practices that provide the structure for quality and for the sustainability of our programs. In talking about quality and the potential for its impact on positive developmental outcomes, we need to pay special attention to summer. More than half of the academic achievement gap can be explained by unequal access to summer activities. There's been about 100 years of research about what's called summer learning loss, and it's shown that while all children lose math skills during the summer, we have a particular problem with reading where middle-income children actually gain about a month of reading skill during the summer, while low-income children lose 3 months. What does this mean for us over time? By middle school, this can accumulate to nearly a 2-year difference in reading comprehension between low-income children and their more affluent peers. Being behind this far makes continued school success a challenge, and it eventually increases the chance that a low-income youth will be less likely to graduate from high school or college. What's the good news? Well, the research suggests that 3 to 4 consecutive summers of high-quality learning can get kids reading on grade level by 3rd grade, being 4 times more likely to graduate from high school. So our summer programs can play a huge role in mediating this achievement gap. But often there just isn't enough access to summer programs, especially for low-income children. And in addition, we certainly face some unique challenges in summer quality because we go from a 3-hour after-school day to long days, sometimes up to 10 hours for summer programs. That means we need to increase the number of staff we have, and sometimes we lack time for training them or for meeting and planning with them. Our National Center on After School and Summer Enrichment partner is the National Summer Learning Association. They also have a range of resources, including summer learning program quality assessments, training, and books on summer quality. I want to also point out to you at the bottom of this slide, there is a link to YouTube video that they created with Brian Williams from NBC that really depicts in a very easy to understand way this summer learning loss process. And I have found it to be very helpful to share with families to increase the awareness about the importance of summer. What is the history about quality improvement for school age? There really is a rich national history that we share for quality improvement systems that goes back about 25 to 30 years. In 1991, NIOS worked with what is now the National After School Association to develop draft standards and a program improvement process that has a focus on continuous quality improvement. The two organizations conducted a pilot of this improvement and accreditation system. The standards that were developed took into account research and standards from both the early childhood world, from the youth development standards of Boys and Girls Clubs, YMCAs, and the NAA standards and accreditation system began formally in 1998. It is now managed by the Council on Accreditation. In addition, certainly, some states have developed their own standalone accreditation systems. Over the years, there's been the development of a number of other program assessment tools and processes. Probably most familiar to you are the environmental rating scale tools, and for school age, it's SACRS. This is used by the majority of states as an assessment tool, and it was revised in 2014. Some of the other tools that are being used include one developed by NIOST called APAS, another developed by the Weichert Center, the Youth and School Age Program Quality Assessment Tool, and also the Summer Learning Association has worked on a summer PQA tool. In addition, nearly 2/3 of states have developed their own standards. There have been other city system building efforts that have included quality improvement, like the MOST initiative and like Wallace Foundation city efforts, which currently are involving 9 states. I also want to mention before we go on the Massachusetts After School Research Study from 2005 that looked at 78 programs in order to identify what quality components were most important in producing youth outcomes. What they found after looking at more than 100 quality characteristics is that the pathway to quality starts with adequate space, then moves to staff who are engaged with youth, and then when youth are engaged, very engaged in challenging and exciting quality activities, we are able to produce outcomes. Okay, so I just want to mention that, okay, very good, sorry. We are going to move on now to a poll, and we'd like all of you to participate in this poll. We have about 70 people online now, so we're hoping to see pretty much 100% response on this poll. So here's the question. What successes have you had in your state or territory or tribe in creating a quality improvement system? Here are some of the answers, and you can certainly check more than one box. Many of you may be able to check almost all of these boxes. But you have involved school-age stakeholders in planning the system. You've created school-age program standards. You've selected your program assessment tools. And you can read the rest. Our responses are starting to come in as people go down through the list. And so far, top vote getters was about 15 people checking in are the involvement of school-age stakeholders in system planning. Also very high you've increased your professional development infrastructure, and I just know from talking to states out there how important that is, because if you have high expectations in your standards, but you don't have that professional development infrastructure that people can access in order to advance on the career pathway or help to support quality improvement, it can be challenging. Okay, let's see how the answers are coming in now. Okay, so still fairly high on the list is involving school-age stakeholders, selecting program assessment tools, increasing professional development infrastructure. Answers still coming in, and we're still seeing some changes in our numbers. And then after that, some people have created program standards. They're involving the full program staff in quality improvement, not just the program leader. And looking more toward the bottom of the list, only 11 people are saying that they have included school age in QIS. And I'm just wondering if you are in the process of including school age in your QIS, you might want to enter it into the chat bar, or if you have other things that you have done in your state, you could also click into the chat bar. Okay, let's take a look at what's come in the chat. Okay, there's a question. What was the name of the Massachusetts study just cited? It's the Massachusetts After School Research Study, otherwise known as MARS. And I'm going to ask my colleague Kathy Schleier if she could maybe put the link up for that. And Thomas is saying that they've just started working on a quality improvement system. So not to successes yet, but those are going to be coming. And I think Chuck is saying that he's a White Creek Center PQA staff member. Welcome to the webinar, Chuck. Glad you're on. Okay. One thing that we certainly need to, I think, Kate, there was also a poll on challenges. So if we could go to that, that would be great. Thank you. So here's our second poll, and we want to check in with you about challenges that you may be experiencing in creating a quality improvement system that really works for school age. And you know that we have quite a few, and again, check all that apply for you. We have a part-time workforce that sometimes lack time to work on quality improvement. We have higher staff turnover than the early childhood field does. Sometimes, especially as we move into QIS, school age is just saying we're not really ready to participate in a QIS system. Sometimes our leaders don't have the support they feel they need to guide quality improvement. The focus in our state is on early childhood. We have a high number of license-exempt programs. So continue to fill this out, and again, we're looking for everybody to participate, even if there's multiple people from your state on the line. It's fine to go ahead and put your own vote in, because you may have your own perspective about this. Okay, I'm not surprised. So far, the top two vote getters are part-time workforce and staff turnover. And I think those two are related because a lot of our workforce is not only part-time, but temporary. They're working with us while they're on their way to other careers, sometimes related, like education or social work, sometimes not. But we're often using high school and college students that don't plan to make a career of it, but they're there and hopefully both feed in. Okay, the next highest vote getter is that the focus in our state is on early childhood. That includes there's been a tremendous focus on infant toddler in recent years. And so sometimes our states just don't have enough money to adequately include school age in their quality improvement efforts. There can be a lack of motivation or readiness coming from the field. Revenues are inadequate to reach the true cost of quality. And I'm just going to look in the chat bar to see if people have other challenges that weren't on the list that you'd like to mention. Jennifer is saying the framework comes from early childhood that is not always aligned to core components linked to school-age quality past the primary grade level. I think that's such an important issue, and I'm just going to encourage people to mention the unique needs or approaches in school age that you would like to see better represented in your state quality improvement systems. What are those issues? I know sometimes states, for example, let's just give you a first example, that sometimes with part-time and temporary staff, sometimes states indicate that they're going to prorate the number of hours of professional development required every year for people who are part-time. Any other issues which you would like to see reflected in your state's quality improvement system?
Susan, we have another comment on educational backgrounds of out-of-school time staff.
Exactly, Jennifer. That's a great one. I know that some states, Washington State is one, have modified what qualifications are acceptable for their school-age staff and school-age leaders. So instead of requiring an early childhood education degree, they may have included other things, elementary education degree, recreation, etc. Okay, we'll move on from the poll, and thank you so much everyone for your input. It's good to see what your experiences are out there as we move forward in our conversation today. So many states have, most states, almost all, have developed quality rating improvement systems. Often, those states will indicate in reports that they submit that they include school age in their system. Even when that happens, we sometimes do not have a high level or density of participation by school-age programs. But let's just take a moment to look at quality improvement systems. How are they defined? They are designed to provide a graduated approach to quality improvement. They build on a foundation of licensing. Licensing is often level 1 or star 1 of a QIS system. This can be complicating for our field because we have a large number of license exempt programs. School-based programs are often license exempt, faith-based programs, Parks and Rec, and so those programs, if they need to become licensed in order to participate in QIS, it can feel like a daunting challenge. There are between usually 3 and 5 steps of quality in most QIS systems and standards that spell out what a center or a family child care program has to meet at each level. States offer support so programs can advance on quality, like training and technical assistance. In addition, there's a growing number of states that are offering tiered reimbursement, including subsidy reimbursement rates at each QIS level, or at least for those top QIS levels. QIS is also designed to provide a user-friendly way for families to know what quality level a center or a family child care home is, so that no matter where your consumers go to look at what programs are available in their community, there's a way for them to know whether or not they're in the QRIS system and at what level. There has been tremendous growth in the QRIS systems, especially as a result of the Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge grants that were awarded to 20 different states in the last few years. And Debbie Mathias from the BUILD organization conducted interviews with those 20 states in order to create a chapter in a book called Rising to the Challenge. And she identified a number of trends in QRIS systems that are helpful for us to understand. Certainly while Race to the Top Early Learning Challenges for early childhood, I think these trends that are listed here have a lot of implications for the school-age world. So top of the list is that some states are requiring a continuous quality improvement approach. For some states, that's simply starting with a requirement for staff teams to develop a quality improvement plan, while other states are developing a more robust approach to continuous quality improvement. There are also changes coming in standards. States are adding more on planning and prep time. They're increasing the focus on two areas that have been shown to produce outcomes, and that is on staff-child interactions and on teaching and learning. States are implementing financing strategies to help programs be able to reach the truer cost of quality. There is also a move toward cost modeling to calibrate what are necessary financial supports. For us, in the school-age world, the Wallace Foundation did a cost of quality study for school-age, and they recently revised their cost of quality calculator specific to school-age and to summer programming. States are also making deep investments in quality improvement supports, especially in technical assistance and communities of practice for peer learning opportunities. We're especially excited to see that some states are building their school-age technical assistance pool, or if somebody is a provider of technical assistance with an early childhood background, they're being asked to take some training on school-age. Before we move on to our state presentations, I just want to pause and review a definition for continuous quality improvement because one of our states will be talking a lot about that, and so I just want to make sure we're on the same page with CQI. CQI is related to the internal owning of a process by the team in the program. It is going beyond meeting the externally applied regulations and standards and moves the lever for change internally under the control of the program participants themselves. And I think you'll see this kind of definition about continuous quality improvement very much reflected in the state presentations to come. With that, I am happy to turn things over to Kathy Schleier, a colleague, and to our esteemed presenters from Pennsylvania and Maryland.
Thank you so much, Susan. That was such a wonderful and rich background. I think you really, in great depth, talked a lot about sort of what quality is. We had a chance to hear from folks on the line and get a sense of both what activities are taking place in their states, but also the challenges that they face. I love the way you set up the idea to talk at the system level, what's sort of happening at the states where they're either working on a quality and rating and improvement system with school age involved, or other ideas where states can have sort of system level work for school age. and then you also tied in some of the trends that we're seeing. One thing I was thinking about, we're going to begin this discussion in just a minute, and during that discussion, we're going to hear both from the states of Pennsylvania and Maryland, and these questions that we'll talk about sort of represent both sort of hearing the history of how these states sort of incorporated their work and got to be where they are with school age, and also sort of the story behind it and what's going on today and into the future. Each of them will be telling a different story, which is wonderful, and that's one of the things that we've learned in the work that we're doing, that each state is approaching things differently and at a different pace. So in thinking about that, sort of before and when you listen to these stories, I sort of wanted to pose a question to you. On the line, we have folks that are representing providers, we have people working at the state level, we have school-age networks. Everybody sort of has a different hat that they wear, and they're all coming into this work sort of from a different place. But in this idea, what we're really trying to do is sort of raise these issues of quality and have you take a look at, you know, where you are today and sort of where you want to go. And the reason I pose this before we begin our conversation is this webinar is really going to kick off a series of peer learning discussions. So I'm hoping in hearing from the states that will sort of intrigue you of both what they're doing and raise questions for you and give you ideas, and that those are things that you can then, you know, follow on with in the work that will come forward. So with that in mind, the first state that I'm going to introduce is Pennsylvania, and that's because they've been sort of at this work a little bit longer. So with me is Jan Sapochny, and Jan is the Director of Quality Initiatives at the Pittsburgh Association for the Education of Young Children. She also provides professional development, and she supports school-age TA consultants in the Pittsburgh area. So what I'm going to do now is just turn this over to Jan and have her give us a little bit of background on what Pennsylvania is doing in their state. Welcome, Jan.
Thank you so much, Kathy. I'm so honored to be here to have the opportunity to tell the Pennsylvania story of how we're supporting after-school and out-of-school time programs. Prior to 2002, Pennsylvania was one of 9 states that did not have a QRES system, or really any funding dedicated towards developing a comprehensive system. In 2002, things changed. We elected a new governor, had a new administration, and it was that administration that really committed the funding to build our QRES system that we call Keystone Stars. Participation in Keystone Stars is voluntary. However, our programs have to be, in order to participate, programs have to be state certified or state licensed. STARS is a 4-tiered system. We have lots of supports in place, such as technical assistance, professional development. We have STARS specialists that go out and work with the programs to help their movement throughout STARS. And we also have peer mentors who are actually directors of STAR 3 and 4 programs that will go and mentor other directors and help them through the process as well. And it's important to say that when Keystone Stars was created, school age was included in STARS from the very beginning. While the standards typically were more conducive to early childhood, but school age was still included. Our programs that are participating in STARS are eligible to apply for grants. The dollar amount is based upon program size, it's based on their STAR level, and it's also tied to child care subsidy. We have an add-on to the reimbursement rate, and that is based upon their STAR level. As of 2015, 64% of center-based programs were participating in Keystone Stars, but only 13% of school-age programs were participating. In our current system, some of the standalone school-age sites especially have some challenges meeting the STARS standards. So in this past year, Pennsylvania has been going through our own CQI process. We've been doing a lot of revisioning and really asking the question, what is possible? So we've started looking at our technical assistance supports, and several work groups were actually created. We're meeting on a regular basis and actually have developed a recommendation that went to our state agency. We've also been looking at the number of services that programs have access to, so that's a good thing, but what's really happening is it's started to become sort of overwhelming for our program administrators. So we're really looking at integrating these services such as the Department of Human Services, such as our QRIS system, our state-funded pre-K programs, and how do we streamline that to make it more available but also easily accessible to our program administrators. And then we've also been doing some STARS revisioning, and we've been doing this for the past, I would say, 8 months. There's been about 75 people that have come together several times across the state. I'm really thinking about our current QRIS system and what's going well and what are some things that we can actually change. To date, we've created a vision statement and core principles on which to build our new revised system. We've created a logic model, and right as of like the next week, we're actually starting to create work groups that are really going to be looking at specific areas with the plan to pilot the new system in the spring and then start fresh on July 1st of 2017. And this work has been guided by the words of Fred Rogers, which are deep and simple is far more essential than shallow and complex. So in September of 2012, we started to think about the challenges that school-age programs are having participating in our QRIS system. So we partnered with NIOS, the National Institute on Out-of-School Time, and we brought the after-school quality project that they created to the state of Pennsylvania, with the goal to being to increase quality, but also to support programs in developing and sustaining continuous quality improvement. We piloted the project across the state with a cohort of 30 programs, and I'm happy to say that this year we're going to start our 5th cohort, and in each region, the state of Pennsylvania is divided into 5 regions, and in each region we can have anywhere from 3 to 10 out-of-school time programs participating in ASQ. We recruit programs in a variety of ways. We have an informational video on our state website. We also send out application forms to programs that may have expressed interest, have maybe heard other school-age programs that have been participating and are now interested. And then we have a school-age coordinator in each region, and they may have identified some school-age programs that are they think may be ready to participate in the ASQ process. The ASQ process is a 5-step process. In step 1, the program prepares the community for change, either by holding staff meetings, community meetings, or through various forms of communication such as social media or email. In step 2, the programs identify community stakeholders and create and prepare the program to participate in the ASQ process. And then in step 3, this is when the team begins to collect data. And they do this in several ways. They do program observations and assessments where they ask folks from the community to come in and do observations. They do surveys. The program director completes a survey. The staff complete a survey. The children complete a survey. They survey the families. And then if the program is located in a school or a community building, they ask the host site to complete a survey as well. And then after they've collected all of this data, they begin to analyze it and start to find some commonalities. What are some things that we're seeing over and over again? So in step 4, the program takes that information and they create an action plan. And then, and it typically has somewhere between 2 to 3 action steps. And then in step 5, the team implements the action plan. And I have to say that the ASQ process has been really, really successful and has really helped the programs to really look at continuous quality improvement in a very different way and really around collecting data and how to build upon that. So as I said earlier, the state of Pennsylvania is divided into 5 regions, and in each region we actually have a school-age coordinator, someone who is dedicated to supporting the school-age programs. And then in some of the regions, because some of the regions are relatively large, then we have additional technical assistance specialists that are there to support the programs through the ASQ process as well. The school-age specialists, school-age coordinators meet on a monthly basis. They either meet virtually through a GoToMeeting platform or they come together face-to-face quarterly. And this group has been meeting for a really long time. I would say probably at least 5 to 6 years, probably longer than that. And they really created this very robust community of practice. At each meeting, each region gives an update and talks about the progress of the programs that they're working with through the ASQ process. We really talk about the successes, what's been going well, what have been some of the challenges. If a program is stuck at a step, why are they stuck? And we talked earlier about how staff turnover is huge in school-age programs, and a lot of times that becomes a barrier for the programs throughout the ASQ process. And so we look at that and how do we address that? And we do that together as a group. And it's also an opportunity for the school-age coordinators to look at best practice and to share ideas and share successes and what have we done in our region and what's been going well. We look at articles that are relevant to the CQI process, and that really helps to inform our practice, and we talk about it. And then because we're consistently tweaking and revising what we do, this group has also created some tools to help support the programs. For example, a Fidelity tool was created, and that has been used to track the progress in each program and also to use the tool to collect data. And then we reflect on our own practice and have the opportunity to tell stories, to share successes, but also to share challenges. And we really support each other in a very strong way by sharing what is working in each region. And we have continued to learn from each other. And then we've also created communities of practice for the program leaders. A few of the regions have facilitated communities of practice virtually because some of our regions are so large geographically, and it's just very difficult for the program leaders to drive to a location. So the success of the virtual platform to facilitate the communities of practice have been very well received. And each meeting, the programs, again, start to share ideas. They share resources. They talk through their own challenges. It's an opportunity not only for the technical assistance specialists to support the programs, but it's also a great opportunity for the programs leaders to support each other. And as we continue our fifth cohort, I believe that each region this year will have their own community of practice, and they've really been successful in providing the support. So I thank you for allowing me to share Pennsylvania's story. And I guess if anybody has questions, please put it in the chat box, and I'm happy to answer those as we go along. And again, thank you so much. And I'm going to hand it over to Sharon, I believe.
Yes, just 1 second, just 1 minute before we hand it over to Sharon. Thank you, Jan. That was really very informative. I mean, one of the things that I notice when I think about Pennsylvania is that Pennsylvania is a very large state. And you've got urban areas, and you've got rural areas, you've got suburban areas. So in a sense, you sort of you're representative of what a lot of other states both face and are in trying to work with. So I have a question for you about, it sounds like you have sort of been working through a few iterations of this process, but for someone who's about to sort of undertake this work and needs to set something up on, say, a system level, do you have any advice? I mean, I love that comment that you made about deep and simple is much better than shallow and complex. Maybe you could speak to that a little bit about maybe some things you had to adjust or change as you went along.
You know, as we came together and we really started to talk through a lot of the challenges that the programs were having, and and how can we support that? Because a lot of programs were saying, well, we just can't do this. We have too much on our plate. So we really thought about the program's readiness and thought about, okay, so if a program is willing to start this process, maybe we need to start them a little bit slower. It's really about meeting programs where they are. And so we developed this sort of readiness checklist that actually was built upon what NIAS had already created, and looked at where is the readiness level. And so we actually have readiness level 1, 2, and 3, and then we base sort of the dosage of what we ask them to do in the ASQ process based upon where they are and what their readiness level is. What infrastructure do they have in place? If they lose a key staff person, then what happens? It's okay to put things on hold, get your staff in place again, and then we start back up again. And we've also sort of done this rolling registration process for ESQ instead of everybody starting on October 1st. Programs can kind of come into it whenever they're ready. So it's again not that they have to follow this process very strictly, but that again, that wherever, depending upon where the programs are in the process, then they can come into it. So I hope did that answer your question, Kathy?
Yes, no, it absolutely did, and it speaks to adaptability. I think one can want change and sort of want to see change, but C meaning S-E-E, but people have to be sort of ready to take on that change, and that also has to be nurtured. So
Right.
Exactly what you're saying makes a lot of sense to me. Also, I'm looking in the chat box, and I see that Bridget has said that where they're working in Wisconsin in their after-school network, that they're doing a pilot, and they're offering TA with 10 hours of yearly consultation and microgrants to programs that are working on the CQI process. So it's nice to hear that this process is going on in other states. And I believe we had a comment just before that about information that Florida shares on its website, too, that folks can look up. So please do check in with the chat box and feel free to put your comments and your questions in there. So thank you, Jan, and I'm now going to move on to Maryland, and I'm going to introduce you to Sharon Vance. Sharon is the president of the Maryland After School Association. They've just had a name change. They're formerly the Maryland School Age Child Care Alliance. So now as the After School Association, Sharon's going to tell us her story as what's happening in Maryland. So Sharon, let's have you test your mic, and I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. My name's Sharon. As you heard, I'm the president of the Maryland After School Association, which I'm still practicing saying. And a little bit later, I'll tell you about my other hat. But I'm here to talk to you a little bit about Maryland Excels and tell you what we've been doing. Compared to Pennsylvania, we're mere babes in the wood. We've got off the ground a few years ago, and I'll run through that timeline in a minute. But basically, our system is based in some quality initiatives that existed before the system came together. So we had licensing, we had a credential for staff, we had an accreditation system, and we had a tiered reimbursement system that loosely used elements from all those other things to determine who might be eligible for additional subsidy money. We're a race to the top, baby. And when that happened, when that grant came through, we pulled all that stuff together into a system, and that's what we'll tell you about. One of the things that seems to be unique about our state is that we have separate standards for everybody. Everybody gets their own list. Child care centers have a set of standards. Family child care homes have another set. There is a specific set of standards for public pre-K, and the fourth set is for school age only. We're really excited about that. Honestly, if you look at the standards, there's not a huge amount of difference, but there's enough difference between each one of those programs, each one of those types of programs, that it makes sense to separate them out rather than to make a whole bunch of exceptions. So, this is our timeline. Like I said, we had licensing and credential and all that stuff. In 2011, we got the Race to the Top grant, and one of the 10 projects we outlined for that grant was to develop the QRIS system. So the pieces were all sitting around. We pulled them all together. At that point in time, the Maryland After School Association was at the table to talk about developing a set of accreditation standards within the state for school-age programs. We had the NAA or COA standards there, and we had the information about what the state was already requiring for preschool centers and early childhood, and we were, jumping up and down and going, no, you don't need to worry about diapering stuff in school age, and doing our usual, advocating for the fact that we have older children and they have different needs, and bringing to the table all of the research and information we had. And all of a sudden we get this grant. We're already at the table talking about accreditation, which is going to be part of our QRIS system. So it was pretty much a natural progression for the Department of Ed to say, okay, now we've got this, help us with this. So we were at the table to help develop standards for school age. And to be fair, representatives from the other associations, so Family Child Care Centers, Head Start, pretty much everybody but pre-K was at the table. The public schools had their decisions made for them. So in July 1st was the official launch of the official launch of the program, and the year before that, the school that I had worked in for 15 years in the after-school program was closing its doors, and I needed a job. So in the early part of 2013, I actually came on board with Maryland Excels as a quality assurance specialist. So I have my after-school association leader hat and then my Maryland Excels quality assurance specialist hat. And what's really great is we have a number of specialists across the state, and everybody has their own unique background. We have some people with very strong Head Start backgrounds, early childhood. We have family provider. I'm the school age person for the state. You have a question about school age, I'm there. and luckily we're a small state. My car has almost 90,000 miles in 3 years, but I will come and I will help, and that's my job. So in December, up until December of 2015, our system was entirely voluntary. There was no requirement that you participate. You could do it if you wanted. If you didn't feel like it, that's fine too. But as of December of 2015, regulation changed to state that if you wanted to be able to receive child care subsidy, you needed to be participating in the QRIS system in Maryland Excel. So, pardon me, last summer and up until New Year's Eve, we were involved in a really intensive effort to make sure that message got out, and our association was, all the professional associations in the state were recruited to make sure that their members had that information, and it literally was putting programs into the system on New Year's Eve last year to make sure that they wouldn't miss a payment. So right now we're working on peer support networks. We're looking at forming some small cohorts regionally to help people move up in the system. And there's a number of future improvements on the table that I'll talk about in a little while. Okay. One of the key components for Maryland has been the outreach and support. I mentioned that I'm a quality assurance specialist. There are 14 of us. We are spread out across the state. The urban areas are a little more concentrated. And then in eastern and far western Maryland, one person kind of covers a lot of territory. But we travel back and forth, and we're pretty much a concierge. The system is entirely web-based. Maryland Excels it's like materials are uploaded into the system just like you upload pictures into Facebook. You have to log into the system. And we thought, well, this is 2016. That would be fantastic. People just log in. They'll upload. They know how to Facebook. That's probably 2 months into the program in 2013 we discovered how many parts of our state don't have internet access, even dial-up. So we were running around looking for sources with public Wi-Fi and, showing up with our computers and hotspots and cell phones and whatever we could to get people registered and into the system. It was a challenge. I think we're still working on that one, but people are learning now, and I know in my area where all the free Wi-Fi is, and I can, I've met people at Starbucks. I probably have had too much coffee, but that's what works, and so that's what we do. The web system is run by Johns Hopkins University's Center for Technology and Education, and the program coordinators who actually evaluate the material providers submit are part of Johns Hopkins. So they are, everything else that's part of the system is run by the State Department of Education. The people evaluating the materials submitted are from Johns Hopkins and outside the system. I think that provides us some balance there. Child Care Resource Centers are a huge piece of our system. They provide broader training and support on the different elements of quality, from the very basic things like developing daily schedules and discipline policies with providers, all the way up to walking them through the steps of accreditation. So they are an invaluable resource. Our professional associations are there. As it would happen, the first year in 2013, our professional association, we were looking for some professional development we could share with our members that wouldn't cost us much. I had this new job with the state. I was authorized to do this overview training for the Excel system. So we did the math, and I ended up wandering around the state one day each month in a different region, giving the overview training and talking to people about Excels and answering questions and helping them get registered into the system. And I think, if it sounds like bragging, but I think that's part of the reason why so many of our school-age programs are involved. As it turns out, in subsequent years at our conferences and things like that, we've always had an element of here's an update, or here's training on the next aspect of the QRIS system that's coming, or what have you. So we try and make sure that the information's there for our members, and that they have whatever it is that they need. There's lots of regional work groups going on. We have some business partners that have joined who have joined the Excel system, not the association, who are providing incentives, the discounts, Discount School Supplies, Scholastic, Kaplan, those kinds of companies, Lakeshore, are all on board and doing things like that. So I have notes here, and I'm going to check my notes and make sure I think I said what I wanted to say. The one thing that I didn't say, and one of the reasons I think I caught Kathy's attention in another webinar, was that our participation numbers for the school-age programs in Maryland are amazing. We have probably close to 80, it's about 79% of the school-age only programs in the state are involved in Maryland Excels. They're participating, and not only are they participating, but they're moving up in the levels. And I think part of the reason is because we did such a great job of making sure everybody knew what they needed. But when I sit back and think about it, and I've talked to some of the providers, why are you doing this? There's a lot of competition in our state. There's generally only one program per school. There are a couple of companies that provide after-school programs in each county. And so if everybody else is in Excels and you show up to, answer to lobby for a contract and you're not, you're going to have that strike against you. So I think there's a little bit of marketing, a little bit of competition. And I'm really excited about the fact that people are starting to see the value past just the requirement. So I think for the beginning of our system in 2013, 14, even into 15, we were running around like crazed toddlers. We were going everywhere, running everywhere, touching everything, kind of on the verge of a meltdown if there was no, in search of Wi-Fi or in search of access and things like that. I think we've settled down out of that, and maybe we've reached the middle school stage. We've got some skills now. We know kind of what we're doing well, and so we're starting to look at changes going forward. Hopkins has done an in-depth review of the system, and those results will be coming out soon. The website itself is about to undergo a renewal, a revamping, just to fix some of the issues that everybody's had or been common. And we're figuring out where to go next.
Wonderful. Sharon, that is a terrific overview that you've given us. And I've got a couple of questions it raises for me, but I also wanted to mention that while you're chatting in the story you were telling, that sort of raised a question from someone out there in the audience that I want to ask you, see if you can address this. If not, that's all right. But so Megan asks, do the standards for homes and centers, meaning sort of family child care and center-based care, do they also address school-age programming? In other words, are your school-age standards, do they cover centers as well as family child care?
The standards are generally for the school-age only programs. However, the way things work, providers are required to provide appropriate programming and appropriate environment for the specific ages they serve. So if a center has an after-school program, they're assessing that with a SACRS environmental rating scale. They are planning and daily schedules are evaluated based on the standards for school age.
So there is a tool, too, that's used throughout the state. Is SACRS sort of required by the programs that are a part of the QRIS?
Yes.
Yes. Good. So we may have some more follow-on questions. Okay, there you go. She's got a thank you. And I certainly want to invite folks to input their own questions now for either Jan or for Sharon. But Sharon, while you were talking, I was really glad that you mentioned the saturation that you have of the participation of the programs. That was something I was going to highlight because Maryland has so many programs participating in that. And I know that doesn't come easy. And interestingly enough, sort of leaving this last slide of yours up, I'm thinking that a lot of it must probably have to do with your emphasis on sort of being out in the field and all the different folks that sort of touch people out in the field. Is that the case? Or
I think that has a lot to do with it. Our biggest concern was making sure that providers got the message, that they knew what was going on and what was going to be required of them. And I mean, it's a little bit easier to reach all the school-age programs in the state maybe because they're concentrated in clusters. One company will have 20 or 25 programs in a particular county, so if they know about it, that brings in, they register all of their programs, not just a handful of them. So.
Right. So, and I know in Pennsylvania, I believe that's also sort of part of their revisioning is to increase participation And Jan, I don't know if there's particular attention that you're focusing to this idea or not, or if you have some thought about that too. Let me ask this question from, you can ponder on that for a minute, but let me ask this question from Bridget. It says, does anyone else have required participation for programs that have children receiving child care subsidy? So the states that are on the line, they do have that, right? So if they're taking subsidy money, they do have to be sort of part of, in Maryland, you have to be part of the program, and I believe in Pennsylvania as well. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Maryland is a required participation. And then once you move up to the mid and upper levels of the system, you're eligible for the additional, the tiered reimbursement, additional payment of it starts at 10%, might go up a little bit higher than that.
Yeah, so I'm seeing in here that says Rhode Island also requires that participation to receive subsidy money, and the respondent said that Wisconsin requires it, and Oklahoma too. So
yeah, I asked about it because I asked my supervisors because I wasn't quite sure what the logic was there. But apparently, if you're a race to the top state, tying the QRIS to the subsidy was a race to the top requirement.
Right. In Virginia, we have Lillian who says Virginia does not require it, as our QRIS is voluntary. And Brittany says Ohio requires participation. I believe that there will be more, maybe more requirements coming to take subsidy money in the future. But now let's see, Indiana is voluntary too right now. This is wonderful to have so much participation. So Tabitha responds that Race to the Top required some kind of connection, but it didn't have to be fully required.
Okay.
Giving tiered reimbursement would also meet the requirement. So also, and thinking about, one of the things that we touched on in your discussions, both of you touched on, is this necessary work that's done around sort of the system level and out at the program level. So in thinking about sort of the readiness to do this work, but also the accountability to do this work, for folks that are out there, do you have any other special suggestions for helping to sort of unify? I mean, I'm sort of thinking, Sharon, you sit in a unique spot sort of as part of a school-age network, but also sort of connected with your QRIS program. So I'm wondering sort of, do you think that gives you sort of a unique position to do this work? Or how can we sort of involve and sort of build our stakeholder groups?
Yeah, and I'm in a small state where everybody knows everybody, and I've been around in the association for 20 years at least. So part of it is that I keep reaching out to people and saying, don't forget about this. But I have tried to keep the two jobs a little bit separated because we want our association to advocate for members and not just be an extension of my job that I happen to have now. So.
Right, so you have to be cautious as to which
I do, and
right.
there's many meetings where someone else from the organization is there because they would be a conflict for me. So our association is at a point where many associations find themselves where it's time to find new and younger participants to take on some of these roles, because some of us have been here too long.
Right. Susan O'Connor asked the question, do other states involve professionals with school-age background in providing TA? So one of the things we've heard is that, states are sort of, expanding their licensing staffs, but not all of them may be particularly trained in school age. So if you've got folks that are going out for monitoring visits or whatnot, how do you make sure that those folks are, knowledgeable and able to sort of provide that lens of understanding the unique needs of school age? And that's a very open-ended question. If anybody wants to respond on that, we're happy to see some responses. Okay, here's one. In many states, licensors have no content knowledge about child care, early or school age. Well, so then that's something that it would help us think about how to address that. So in states, we've been doing some listening sessions among different state groups as part of the technical assistance work that NCASE does. And in one state, I heard what they did is that they sort of mixed at the state level, they sort of put their offices together and near one another. So those who were doing licensing and regulation were sort of near the folks who were out providing technical assistance in the field to sort of help bring more communication and discussion together. Sharon, you mentioned something that I thought was very interesting about having a lot of web-based information that then funnels into a central location, and then, if I understood that correctly, then sort of technical assistance is offered. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Okay. You're talking about how programs upload their materials into the web-based system?
Yes. And does that material that they upload into it, does that bring forth either need for technical assistance, or can you describe that a little bit? What that information they upload?
There's the program coordinators who are with Hopkins they are notified that so-and-so's programs uploaded their paperwork. Time to go look at it, and they look at it, and if they'll give some guidance if there's an element missing from something. But if they offer that guidance and it doesn't seem like the provider's understanding what they're trying to say in an email message, then either they can recommend technical assistance, the program coordinator can recommend it to them, or if a provider goes into the system and looks at a criteria and says, I have no idea what this means, there's a button on every page where they can click. It says get technical assistance. And that either comes to one of the QASs or it's funneled to our resource network.
Well, that's terrific. And coupled with that, I'm seeing that Bridget has made a comment saying that the Wisconsin After School Network is working with higher ed faculty to provide communities of practice, webinars, and individual consultation. So that's another means and another mode of the same way Marilyn described working with Johns Hopkins, you've got sort of states that have formed partnerships with universities in their locales. So that is good help.
Kathy, do you mind this is Jan, if you don't mind if I interject just 1 second?
Yes, please do.
So to the point about the technical assistance specialists having school-age backgrounds, in Pennsylvania, as I said, we have 5 regions, and each region has a school-age coordinator, and each one of those coordinators have either been directors in programs, worked in school-age programs, but they all have a pretty lengthy experience working in school-age programs. I just wanted to interject that.
That's terrific, because then that provides the knowledge of what's happening at school-age programs, which is unique and different from what's happening in early care and toddlers. So I think pulling this together, I'm beginning to sort of feel that we're going to start drawing to a close. But before I pass it on to Siobhan, who is going to do a close, I just want to make sure we've addressed everyone's questions, because we want to make sure that you've had a chance to ask your questions here. So one of the questions we have, or one of the comments we have from Bridget in Wisconsin, is she says, Wisconsin has made inroads in the TEACH funding to support credit-based education for school-age and youth development staff. So that is a good program to know and mention. TEACH offers some scholarships that can help support the development, professional development of out-of-school time folks. So that is a good program to be aware of in your state if you're not already. And let's see. So we've talked on many of these topics. We haven't so much talked about the assessment tools that programs have used. So how about if we just sort of take a minute to revamp. We heard you say that you were using SACRS in Maryland. In Pennsylvania, what tools are you using?
Currently, we are using the SACRS, but we've been looking into some other tools. We've also used the NIAS tool for the ASQ process, and we also looked into the possibly for this year YPQA as well for the ASQ process.
Okay. Good. All right, and all those tools look at quality measures, and they're specifically designed for school-age programs. And there are some of the common tools that are used. All right, well, I think that we have really sort of touched on all of these questions, and so we want to sort of bring our attention to our time to fold our comments together. And so with that in mind, I want to particularly thank Jan and Sharon, and I'm going to pass the discussion back over to Siobhan, our host.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And thanks, everybody, for your contributions. And Jan and Sharon for sharing the work that you've been doing and for answering all the questions that came through. It's really fascinating to get to hear what's going on in the different states, and the active chat was really helpful for that. Some of the key points that I heard across the discussion, both from our presenters and also from folks that were participating through the chat, were the importance of cross-sector collaboration in engaging school-age and quality improvement systems, and that's no surprise because we're talking about systems-level change, so collaboration across sectors is key. I also heard many times that it's a process, an ongoing process, again, not surprising because we're talking about systemic change that requires support at multiple levels, and some of the examples were peer mentors, technical assistants, communities of practice, and really an approach of meeting programs where they are. I heard that throughout, and helping to bring them along to where they need to be by really understanding the beginning point and helping to support them. And then I also heard across our presenters the importance of collecting and using data to inform the work and the ongoing reflection, which really fits with the whole process and approach of continuous quality improvement. So one of the things that we're really excited about here at NCASE to follow on this webinar is that we're going to be offering an upcoming peer learning community, and we're strongly encouraging state or territory teams to participate, and a team can be 2 to 5 people from your state, and it can include any mixture of your state CCDF lead agency staff, quality improvement staff, state after-school networks, child care resource and referral, people who are really involved in this work. There'll be 4 monthly web sessions starting November 10th, and the topics will be prioritized by participant interest, and they could include any of the following that we've touched on in many of our conversations today: strengthening interactions and instructional quality, leadership, readiness for quality improvement, that again getting to meeting people and programs where they are, increasing participation, engaging family child care, summer program quality improvement, and we heard about some interesting work going on in at least one state today around that, involving license exempt programs, cost of quality incentives, effective technical assistance and coaching. Again, we heard a lot about that today, and partnerships and policies to sustain quality improvement. So shortly there will be an announcement going out from the Office of Child Care Announcements. Hopefully everybody who is participating in this event found out about it through Office of Child Care Announcements. It's really the best way to find out about upcoming NCASE technical assistance events. And we hope that you will consider pulling together a team to join us to participate. If you're really interested in participating and you're not able to pull a team together, you can still go ahead and sign up, and we'll see if we have some slots available for individuals. We have some resources that and references that were shared in today's call, so these are available for you in the PowerPoint, which you can download. And finally, we did, at the beginning of the call, for those that were on early, Kate mentioned our resource library, which is on the Early Childhood Training and Technical Assistance website, and this is our out-of-school time resource library. We're very excited about it. We launched it a couple of months ago, and we're going to continually update it. And it brings together a number of resources from out-of-school time that are really relevant to this work. We do have quite a few resources that are specifically focused on quality, as well as a number of other topics, and the collection is going to continue to grow. We also welcome suggestions for additional resources if you go there and you have additional ideas of things that you think we should include. And we also, of course, have our website, which is on the Office of Child Care Training and Technical Assistance website, and that showcases our upcoming events and our NCASE produced resources. You can also always reach us at this email here, our NCASE email. We really appreciate everybody taking the time to participate today and all of the active engagement. We hope that you'll consider participating in the upcoming peer learning community on this topic, and keep an eye out for that announcement. Please do contact us if you have questions about that. And finally, momentarily, there will be a brief evaluation survey that will pop up, and we'd appreciate it if you take a couple minutes to fill it in and let us know what you thought of this event, how useful it was, and how we can continue to make our offerings as useful as possible to all of you. So thanks again. Thanks to our presenters, to my colleagues, and to all of you for joining us. Goodbye.